What is up, guys? It's your boy Rick on that grind cactus, and today, with the new weekly reset, it turns out that this is one of the best weeks ever for farming within Destiny 2. Now that's because, as you can see, it is double Nightfall rewards. So if you can complete a Grandmaster Nightfall with a platinum rating, you're gonna get usually 2 exotic armor pieces, 2 Adept Nightfall weapons, I think 3 or 4 Ascendant shards, prisms, and so much more. An insane amount of extremely valuable loot. But on top of that, guys, because it's Guardian Games, remember you can go and grab Nightfall Platinum Contender cards to also be farming Platinum medals at the same time. The sheer amount of loot you can get from a single run is insane. So in this video, we have the guide for the current farmable weekly Grandmaster, Glassway. Now this is generally considered one of the harder Grandmasters in the game, but we have 3 incredible builds, one for each different class, that makes this fast and easy. I've done a lot of Grandmaster Glassway runs, and I can honestly say with these builds, it was easier than ever before. So let's take a look at them, starting with what modifiers you're going to need to know about. So the champions are Barrier and Overload, we have Solar Surge and Strand Surge, and we have Overcharged Grenade Launchers. Starting things off with my Titan, I was a Strand Berserker. So, importantly, we do have Rally Barricade for the faster recharge, we've got Shackle Grenades for Suspend, then we've got Into the Fray and Dranger's Lash as our aspects. Our fragments are Thread of Mind, Thread of Wisdom, Thread of Continuity, and Thread of Warding. Now, the featured exotic is going to be the Abeyant Leap exotic legs. These are going to make our class ability shoot out 3 different strand projectiles that track more aggressively, and we gain Woven Mail for a huge degree of extra protection every time we suspend a target. Now, as for the weaponry, first of all, it's the Quicksilver Storm exotic auto rifle. This is going to deal with those overload champions. It's also Strand to synergize with my build, and it's just performing really well right now after the 25% damage increase to auto rifles for PvE, which did apply to this. Now, after that, my secondary is the Deafening Whisper. Really, any good Void grenade launcher will do well here. Grenade launcher for the 25% damage increase because it's overcharged, and it's Void to get stuff like Volatile Flow and Bricks from Beyond as you're getting kills with it. Then my heavy is a Hezen Vengeance, but really any solar rock launcher will do here. Now moving on from there, my mods are firstly, for the helmet, I've got Harmonic Siphon, then Void Siphon, and Dynamo. After that, I've got Focusing Strike and Double Bolstering Detonation. After that, I've got the trifecta of Elemental Resistances. Then I've got Void Weapon Surge, then Absolution and Insulation, and then lastly, I've got 1 Time Dilation, and then I do have a Utility Kickstart, so that is going to rip off the armor charges, but it's going to give your class ability back so often, and lastly, I have a Bomber. So the idea with this build is to absolutely spam your suspending class ability that is so much more powerful thanks to the exotic legs over and over and over again, and any champion you come across, wyverns, etc., and you'll see in the gameplay, yeah, they were all instantly suspended. So darn helpful. Now, moving on from there, for the Warlock, we do have a Dawnblade with Well of Radiance, but it's a little different this time. So we are using a Healing Rift, Celestial Fire, Fusion Grenades, combined with Touch of Flame and Icarus Dash as our aspects. Then we've got Ember of Mercy, followed by Ember of Torches, Ember of Resolve, and Ember of Searing for our fragments, and then our featured exotic is actually the Phoenix Protocol. Now, yes, the Starfire Protocol is absolutely busted right now, but for this Nightfall specifically, there's just so much ads thrown at you that you're not necessarily able to put down an Empowering Rift and chuck grenades non-stop. You're pressured a little too much for that, in my opinion, so the extra survivability of having constant wells, because Phoenix Protocol is going to give you super energy back as you're getting kills in your well, is just so darn useful. And frankly, we had a well for every single encounter throughout this Nightfall. It was incredibly good. Now, After that, guys, for the weaponry, first of all, we do have a Lingering Dread Disorienting Grenade Launcher, so good for ad control, and remember, Chill Clip, the first shot that slows, will stun Overload champions. After that, an Omega PR6, just a pulse rifle to deal with those barrier champions. And then lastly, a Galahorn. This is great to use whenever it's Solar Surge, and this is going to massively buff the rest of the team's solar rocket launchers thanks to Pack Hunter. But moving on to the armor mods, we have Harmonic Siphon, followed by Special Ammo Scout and Dynamo. After that, we do have Stasis Loader for that Lingering Dread, Bolstering Detonation, and Firepower. Now, after that, guys, we do have Arc Resistance, Concussive Dampener, and Void Resistance. Then we've got Absolution, and Insulation, and Innervation. And then lastly, we have Reaper, followed by Double Bomber. But moving on to the Hunter, we have a Night Stalker with the Deadfall Shadow Shot, followed by Gambler's Dodge and Vortex Grenades. Then our aspects are Trapper's Ambush and Vanishing Step. Our fragments are going to be Echo of Perseverance, Echo of Obscurity, and Echo of Starvation. Now after that, the featured exotic is going to be, of course, the best thing to pair with an Invisibility Hunter, the Aeon Swift with Sect of Insight to produce heavy ammo for your teammates. Now, as for the weapons, first off, we have the Revision 0 Exotic Pulse Rifle, and my teammate was saying this was incredibly good. So, Pulse Rifles got a 20% damage buff for PvE recently. He's actually using the Haka Heavy Burst Fire mode, which got a massive buff recently as well, combined with 4-timer retrofit, to improve the smaller magazine size you get with this mode. And remember, guys, this is intrinsically anti-barrier, which means it's going to go through the end boss's shield automatically, including those sniper shots that the exotic perk gives you when you do enough damage. And those actually kind of schlap even in Grandmasters, again, thanks to that 20% damage buff. Now, moving on from there, guys, we have an Empty Vessel Grenade Launcher as a good blinding grenade launcher, getting advantage of the Solar Surge. Now after that, lastly, we have an Apex Predator, again a good solar rocket launcher. And moving on to the mods here, guys, we have Kinetic Siphon, Heavy Ammo Scout, and Heavy Ammo Finder. Then we've got Bolstering Detonation and Double Momentum Transfer. After that, we do have the trifecta of elemental resistances. And then we have Stacks on Stacks and Solar Scavenger. And lastly, guys, we have Reaper, we have Proximity Ward, and Special Finisher, which is a great pairing if you're running Aeons. You're getting finishers anyways, might as well make heavy and special. And there are the builds. Again, were incredibly effective within this particular Grandmaster. Now, as for some tips for the strike itself. Now, honestly, guys, because of how well these builds were performing, we were playing a little loosey-goosey, right? We're just running in, engaging enemies. However, in this beginning part, when you're going from one area and being funneled into another one, just remember there's nothing preventing you from doubling back. If you're getting pressured by enemies too much, just go back. There's usually a long hallway that you can really slowly hold out in and deal with one enemy after the next, and that is going to be a safer approach. But with how much crowd control we had, honestly, all of these areas were super easy. Remember to suspend every champion you see if you can. Because, yes, you can't stun it with the suspend, but oh my goodness, it gives you plenty of time for your teammate or yourself to get that stun in. Now moving on from there, we come to this section here where you're holding out on the plate, and this is the perfect place to pop your Phoenix Protocol well. In fact, it went so well, we basically got it back almost immediately after the first one went out. However, keep in mind that the enemy spawns are tied to the percentage of the objective you've completed. So you can just stand on this platform until you see enemies and then get off. You're only going to have to deal with that one wave, and another wave won't spawn until you get back on and complete more of the objective, right? So you can take things a lot slower and make it easier on yourself. And also, if you ever do feel pressured, just get off of the main platform and try to find cover. There's some nearby barrels that are relatively good, somewhat behind this platform. Additionally, during and after the objective, as long as you're in this area, watch out for snipers. They spawn on kind of the upper parts of the walls on either side, and you really want to deal with those guys sooner rather than later. But moving on from there, guys, we get to the infamous Glassway boss fight. This is going to take pretty much as long as the rest of the strike combined. So you're first going to come in, kill some enemies. Remember to, if you can, before the bosses spawn, get that finisher on the first champion here. Start building a store of heavy ammo in this arena that you can go out and get to deal with the bosses. And then you have the two bosses spawn, right? You have the bigger guy and the smaller Hydra. And the important thing about these guys is that the waves of enemies are tied to the damage you deal to these guys. So, first wave, you're going to have two overload champions coming at you, and if you deal damage to the Transcendent Hydra, the small one, you will get another wave with another two overload champions, right? That's important. So you can take things slow by kind of ignoring that Transcendent Hydra. If you're in a well, it normally doesn't do that much damage to you. You can try to avoid it around this room, and the room immediately on the left after you enter this arena that you see us holding out in, this is the best room to hold out in. So again, you can not damage this Transcendent Hydra, kill the first wave of enemies, kill those champions, and then when you're ready, go and find that guy, deal the damage, and get the second wave to spawn. However, as you can see, we did not bother with that. Turns out, when you are in this particular room of this arena, most of the enemies are funneling down this one hallway. So if you have suspend grenades, or again, my Abeyant Leap suspend class ability, you are able to suspend every single darn champion, wyvern, powerful enemy that comes in here, no problem. This is part of what just made this, again, the easiest run ever of Glassway. Suspend turns out to be a much better crowd control option than freeze. It lasts significantly longer. Combine that with the constant Phoenix Protocol wells, intelligently put, as you can see, right kind of behind this left wall, so that the very middle, like, sword won't be damaged by the boss. If you put it like out in the open, just straight down the hallway, the boss can shoot down this hallway and actually destroy your well, so just keep that in mind. But I mean, there you have it. Like, pretty much the entirety of this boss fight was us holding out in this room, everything funneling down this hallway and getting suspended, or in the cases of the wyverns, blinded. And when there was a bunch of suspended enemies all in one place, you just whip out the Galahorn infused rocket launchers and just destroy everything. In fact, again, the suspend lasts so long, often when we were picking off like one or two champions, we would whittle them down with primaries in order to get those finishes and keep up our supply of heavy ammo. That being said, you don't want to be overwhelmed, so don't be afraid to yeet a couple rockets at some wyverns, right? Or save your rockets and just use your Strand Super. As you can see, that was very effective as well when a group of enemies would push forward. Just having that suspend on the heavy attack was so darn valuable. Now, as for the big bad boss, it's all about baiting this guy, right? You do not want to send your entire team all out the same exit and all get nuked together and sent back to orbit. Have one guy get the aggro of the boss, and while the boss is looking at that guy, shooting at that guy, you have the other two teammates behind the boss getting easy shots. If the boss gets distracted and starts to aggro them, then you have, the guy on the other side take some shots. Like, you are really just having to lead the boss around to different areas and splitting your team up to just kind of take shots from different angles. Again, do not group up when it comes to this boss. Now, I have one last tip involving the barrier champions. So, unlike the wyverns and the overload champions that charge right into your room you're holding out in, the barrier champions will not come into that room. They will stay outside. And so they can be a bit tricky to deal with. If you go outside to try to get them, yes, that's what a lot of teams do, but it's pretty darn easy to die to 3 barrier champions all sniping you at once. So what I would highly recommend is just trying to snag one with a cheeky suspend grenade or even the suspend class ability. They go pretty far, and if you can just get one suspended like down a hallway and then your team kind of works together, even just with primaries, to take that one down, it's gonna make it so much easier. You really don't want to go outside your kind of room of safety until there's only like one, sometimes two barrier champions left, and you can kind of deal with those guys. Again, you don't want to just charge out, because it's so easy to be dealing with one and then have the other one that you don't see snipe your teammate, he's dead, and then, you know, no one's breaking the barrier on the first one, that guy's back up, suddenly two barrier champions are up, two guys are dead, and it just kind of steamrolls and ends really badly. So pick them off one by one as they come into view when you're looking out of your room of safety, using suspend to keep them in place. And so guys, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.